Bob's Breakfast.
Good morning, Carolina.
Good morning, Graham. I know that we don't talk to each other. I know
we do talk to each other from time to time,
no,
yes.
I'm not talking to you, basically.
You're not talking to me?
It's my birthday today.
Your birthday?
Yes, I would like to say about my favourite sound.
Okay. What's your favourite sound, first of all?
Well, my favourite sound is a freshly opened bottle of wine.
Oh,
and first pour into the glass. That's the best sound ever.
You like that? You like that sound? You like it because you're an alcoholic. Okay. How old are you?
You don't know how old I am. You know exactly.
Are you 39?
No, I'm 36 today.
36. But you're still looking for a fella?
Yes, of course, always.
Yes, yeah. And you're keeping yourself in shape? You're still looking good for the gents? It's Carolina's birthday. She likes a glass of wine. It's Carolina's birthday. Desperate and dateless but looking fine. I'm glad it's your birthday. Happy birthday to you. You're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36 today! Yeah! Yes, we're going to a party. Yes, we're going to a party. Carolina to a birthday party, yeah.
Bob's Breakfast.
Chris brought us an amazing story from Worcester Cathedral of a bell ringer who got his heel caught in the rope and the rope winched him up into the bell tower. He had to get the fire brigade to lower him down 80 feet. Bonzi's on the phone. Morning, Bonzi.
Yeah, just listen to about the old bell ringer here. But apparently this happens quite a lot.
Oh, really?
All the time.
All the time! All the time!
Hello.
Goodness me. Let's ring him back. Bonzi, see if I can get him back on the phone.
Hello?
Bonzi, I heard that one fella got caught in the rope and it fired him up so far into the bell tower that he actually smacked into the bell with the front of his head.
Let me guess.
Go on then, finish it.
Go on. He ended up in hospital and the police and everything came as well and they all checked him out and, you know, his face don't ring a bell. Old ones are the best, aren't they?
Yeah, but do you know what else happened?
Go on.
Do you know what else happened? His twin brother, his identical twin brother, he took over from him while he was sick, but he wasn't very experienced at it. Same thing happened to him, and he died.
Go on.
And he ended up falling to the bottom of the bell tower, and one bloke looks at him and goes, "That's the second time that's happened." And he says, "Oh, isn't it the same fella?" He says, "No, but he's a dead ringer for the other."
Get off.
This is Bob.
Morning, Piper.
I've got a good complaining story for you.
Oh, what happened?
It was my husband.
Yeah.
When he was a student, he and his mates, they all went out for quite a boozy meal down in Southampton. And, you know, sort of caroused until the early hours. And anyway, what they did the next day was they rang the restaurant and to complain about the noisy students who were making a racket, i.e. them.
They called up and complained about themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they got a free meal.
Chris Hubbard brings us the news, and tragic news for so many people yesterday in London. Just the incident in London. Awful. 5
absolutely.
people have died now, including the driver of the car that drove into people.
That's right. And the police officer who was stabbed outside as well.
Family man too.
Yeah.
Married with kids.
48-year-old Keith Palmer, husband and dad.
Yeah. Awful. And 40 people injured, and some of them with horrific injuries, life-changing injuries. Life will never be the same for them or their families again.
They reckon tourists from all around the world as well. Tourists from Romania, France, South Korea. It's a busy time of the day when that happens.
Oh, well, it's a major... And, you know, Westminster Bridge with those big wide pavements, people going along there, taking pictures with Big Ben and everything, having a lovely day, and then this tragedy.
It was quite sobering, actually. We went into London, and obviously, I mean, there's many people who walk along Westminster Bridge every day. But I said to my wife last night, if we'd have been walking across there at that time with our son, we wouldn't have stood a chance.
I think most people have walked across Westminster Bridge at some stage.
Yeah.
And, you know, everyone can think, well, it's wrong place, wrong time. Could have been anybody. That's how innocent the victims of this were.
Yeah.
Just dreadful. So at a time like this, national crisis, you would expect the Prime Minister to make a memorable speech, to bind us all together, to feel better, to give it a bit of perspective, to be a true leader. Unfortunately, that's not what she did. I've got here, this was late in the afternoon after she'd been, because she was, first of all, she was driven away to be protected.
That's right. She was driven back to Downing Street, so ushered into a car, driven over to Downing Street, and then it was sort of 4:30-ish, I think, when she actually made a statement.
She came out of Downing Street, and this is what she said.
I have just chaired a meeting of the government's emergency committee, COBRA, following the sick and depraved terrorist attack on the streets of our capital this afternoon.
Okay, I think she meant to say sick and depraved, not stick and depraved. But anyway, that's just a mistake. She's under pressure. You can give her that. But what I can't forgive her for is the way she starts. She starts with, I have just come out of a meeting, COBRA meeting. It's not situations like this. It's you, or it's us. It's not I. You don't open with, I have just come out of a meeting. You open with, we are going to get through this. It's like, you learn that in radio. People who don't know how this medium works will often say, I'm giving away tickets, or we're giving away tickets. You don't hear that on BOBfm. You hear, you can win. You hear you. You don't hear I. And I think that was a very, very poor way to start. She carries on.
The full details of exactly what happened are still emerging.
Okay, so she admits there, we don't really know anything. The full details are still emerging. She admits we don't know.
But having been updated by police and security officials, I can confirm that this appalling incident began when a single attacker drove his vehicle into pedestrians walking across Westminster Bridge, killing 2 people and injuring many more, including 3 police officers.
Single attacker. She said it was a single attacker that did this.
This attacker, who was armed with a knife, then ran towards Parliament, where he was confronted by the police officers who keep us and our democratic institutions safe. Tragically, 1 officer was killed. The terrorist was also shot dead.
Wait a second. She's now decided he was a terrorist. How do we know that? How do we know it was a terrorist? He didn't shout any terrorist slogan. He didn't even shout, God is great. Well, we've had no evidence of that.
No
terrorist group has claimed responsibility. And you know, ISIS, they claim responsibility for stuff they had nothing to do with. They've done it many times.
The Met Police yesterday said they were treating it as a terrorist incident.
Yeah.
But there is a difference between that and, directly saying it was a terrorist.
It's a terrorist incident. But the Prime Minister described the attacker as a terrorist. Now, if you look at the definition of terrorism, it's this. A person who uses unlawful violence and intimidation especially against civilians, in the pursuit of political aims. Without proof of the pursuit of political aims, you don't have terrorism. So she's jumped the gun there. I wonder why that could be.
The United Kingdom's threat level has been set at severe for some time.
And there's your
reason.
reason.
This will not change.
There's your reason. The government set the terror threat level at severe. I think it was like 12 months ago it changed from something that sounded like severe, wasn't it? It was acute to severe, or from highly something. It was, anyway. The government announced we were under threat. It may have even been as long ago as 2 years ago. That is why she's claiming this was terrorism, so that she could say, we told you this would happen. She's going to look pretty silly if it turns out that this was just a lone nutter. Now, we don't know what the motives were. She should just leave it at that. Don't speculate. Don't declare that it's terrorism when you don't know.
Acting Deputy Commissioner Rowley will give a further operational update later this evening. Our thoughts and prayers go out to all who have been affected.
Okay. She is now 1 minute 15 into the speech before she says, our thoughts and prayers go out to all that were affected. That is where she should have started the speech. That's what she should have opened with as our leader. All right, she wasn't democratically elected, but she's in charge. That's what we wanted to hear first. She desperately needs a new speechwriter. She started with, I have just come out of a meeting. That's disgraceful. The people who've been affected by this, start there. Have a bit of compassion.
To the victims themselves and their family and friends who waved their loved ones off, but will not now be welcoming them home. For those of us who were in Parliament at the time of this attack, these events provide a particular reminder of the exceptional bravery of our police and security services, who risk their lives to keep us safe.
We're now almost 1 minute 45 in before she mentions the police and what they did. She should have opened with this.
Once again today, these exceptional men and women ran towards the danger, even as they encouraged others to move the other way. On behalf of the whole country, I want to pay tribute to them and to all our emergency services for the work they have been doing to reassure the public and bring security back to the streets of our capital city. That they have lost one of their own in today's attack only makes their calmness and professionalism under pressure all the more remarkable. The location of this attack was no accident.
How does she know that? The location of this attack was no accident.
The terrorists chose to strike at the heart of our capital city.
How does she know what the terrorist chose? She doesn't even know if he's a terrorist.
Where people of all nationalities, religions and cultures come together to celebrate the values of liberty, democracy and freedom of speech. These streets of Westminster, home to the world's oldest parliament.
Now that's factually incorrect. It's not the world's oldest parliament. Thousands of years ago, the Greeks had a parliament. The Romans stole the Greek system. The Romans had it thousands of years ago. It's not the world's oldest parliament at all. That's a lie.
Are ingrained with a spirit of freedom that echoes in some of the furthest corners of the globe. And the values our parliament represents: democracy, freedom, human rights, the rule of law, command the admiration and respect of free people everywhere. That is why it is a target for those who reject those values.
How does she know this person rejected those values? Like I said, this person could just be a lone nutter. Could be a terrorist with a political motive. But we don't know.
But let me make it clear today, as I have had cause to do before. Any attempt to defeat those values through violence and terror is doomed to failure.
Terror again.
Tomorrow morning, Parliament will meet as normal. We will come together as normal. And Londoners, and others from around the world who have come here to visit this great city, will get up and go about their days as normal. They will board their trains. They will leave their hotels. They will walk these streets. They will live their lives. And we will all move forward together, never giving in to terror.
Once again, we don't know if it was terror.
And never allowing the voices of hate and evil to drive us apart.
And even if it was terror, you're doing the wrong thing by saying they hate and they're evil. The people who do these things in the name of terror, the people like the likes of ISIS, they believe they're right. They believe what they're doing is the work of their God. They don't believe they're evil. Just calling them evil is childish. So that was the wrong thing to say. If it was terror, that was the wrong thing to say. If it wasn't, any relationship to terror was the wrong thing to say. And starting out your speech with "I've just come out of a meeting" was totally the wrong thing to say. This is how bad she got it. The only voice of reason, politically, at the moment is coming from, you won't believe this, the USA.
Where's it coming from?
Obviously, it's not coming from Donald Trump.
No.
Because
I've
he's
not
already
heard him say anything.
he's already promised revenge.
Yeah.
Rex Tillerson, the US Secretary of State, this is what he said. "We condemn these horrific acts of violence, and whether they were carried out by a troubled individual or terrorists, the victims know no difference."
That's a very strong line.
Perfect.
Mm.
Absolutely perfect. We condemn these horrific acts of violence, of course you would. And whether they were carried out by a troubled individual or by terrorists, the victims know no difference. Absolutely perfect. He managed to say in a few seconds there what Theresa May failed to say in over 4 minutes.
My name is Pat Davis.
How are you, Pat?
I'm fine. Did you get my message? Hello?
How did you send the message to me?
By telephone.
Oh, I see. It's an answer phone message, is it?
No, I sent a message. I rang your number.
Yes, this number?
And your number, yes.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I rang you on 01438 422 106.
That's my number.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, good morning, Bob.
Good morning.
I have protested several times about the weather maps on television.
Right, okay.
I live in Hertford. They never show Hertford.
They don't?
They show Ware.
Yes.
They show Luton.
Yes.
They sometimes show Harlow.
Yes.
But they never show Hertford.
Let me just check. Hold on a second. Let me just check our weather map here.
Thank you.
You're absolutely right. Hertford is missing from our map. Yes.
Well, I'm here.
Yes, are you?
I'm certainly not missing.
No, you're not. You're definitely not missing. What was your name again?
Well, it was Mrs. Pat Davies.
Mrs. Pat Davies. Mrs. Pat Davies.
Davies.
Whereabouts are you in Hertford?
Nearly in the middle.
Okay, I'm writing you in now. Mrs. Pat Davies, right in the middle of where Hertford should be on our weather map.
Would you like my telephone number?
No, thank you. I don't think we should put that on there. No.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you want my address? Do you want my postcode?
No, I'm fine. I think just having your name there where Hertford should be should do the trick.
Well, everybody knows me in Hertford.
Yes, do they?
I was born here in 1940.
Yes.
And only missed being killed because Hitler couldn't aim straight.
Right. He's a bit.
You get my meaning?
Yes, maybe he bought his weapons from the same place that Theresa May got our latest nukes.
I have no idea.
Yes, because we've had a problem with those as well. All right. Well, thank you, Mrs. Pat.
Mrs. Pat Davies.
That's
please.
right, Mrs. Pat Davies.
I am actually an M.A.
What's that?
Master of Arts.
Are you really? What arts are you master of?
conservation policy.
I didn't realise that was an art. How about that? I would have thought sculpture would have been more your speed.
Well,
but there you go.
No. I'm an art, and an artist, so to speak.
Yes.
I'm conservation policy. I graduated from Middlesex Poly, but it's now called Middlesex University.
That's fantastic. Mrs. Pat Davis, it's been a pleasure talking to you, but I have to conserve some time right now, so I have to go. All right,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
This is Bob.
Now, tossing coins into a fountain for luck is a popular superstition. You see it very regularly if you go on holiday to the West Country, where they still have wishing wells.
Yes.
But a similar belief actually brought a bit of misery to a sea turtle in Thailand, for whom doctors have taken out 915 coins out of this sea turtle.
Ah.
So people have been throwing coins into this wishing well, and the turtle have been snacking on them. The turtle lived in this wishing well.
Oh, I see. But it was a sea turtle.
It was a sea turtle.
Was the well connected to the ocean somehow?
It was kind of a well/pool.
I see,
so
right, yeah.
Yeah, and the seawater was in there.
Human beings are stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, the trouble is, we have, like, big brains and advanced intelligence, but we take it too far. We believe in goofy stuff like throwing a coin in a fountain will bring you luck. Like, other goofy stuff like, all religions. It's just complete nonsense. It's just made up nonsense because we were given the power of imagination. But we can't imagine a better world where sea turtles aren't choking on our crap. Jane's on the phone. She listens to BOBfm in North Yorkshire. You want to talk about what happened in London yesterday, Jane?
Obviously, I'm 200 miles away, but the impact, my sons live and work in London, friends work in the city, are horrified like everybody else. But two things stood out in my mind. The first one, yes, our politicians, they might provide the framework for our country. But the people at the front line, the people who actually make our country work, are the doctors, the nurses, the hospital orderlies, the policemen, the firemen, the teachers.
Yeah.
Those are the people. Without them, we're not Great Britain, really.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm out of breath because I've just run upstairs.
No, but it's actually, you're absolutely right.
And I think, watching the doctors run across the bridge yesterday, the one minister and member of parliament who ran out,
Tobias. Tobias used to be my neighbour. He lived in the flat above me when I lived in Bournemouth.
Did he?
Yeah,
he's MP for Bournemouth, isn't he?
Yeah, that's right.
And he's a Green Beret.
Yes, he's ex-military. Yeah.
Yes, but that training stood out. I mean, and the guy also, I think, very sadly lost his brother.
Yeah.
In a terrorist attack. But he, straight out there, straight to the nub of it.
That's the best of Britain right there when you see that going
certainly.
on. Yeah.
And another thing struck me that isn't quite so wonderful, and that covers the media.
Yeah.
I was watching it, obviously, in my lounge, safe, and the thinly disguised glee on some of the reporters' sort of faces and in their voices. We're covering this event. This thing's happened. Oh, it's awful.
Yeah.
And I thought, could at least look really horrified because people have died. We don't know, at that time we didn't know what the cost was. But you could almost see them thinking, oh, my career might be going up a few notches because I'm here at the face of it. And I found that a bit, well, shall we say at best, distasteful.
Yeah. Jane?
Of course the media has to cover it. They absolutely have to.
Yeah.
But at least sort of look as though they're horrified.
Yeah. All right. Jane, thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.
Good morning, Grove. See you later.
Good morning.
Bye.
Bob's Breakfast.
Have you ever had a problem neighbour? Somebody who really got on your nerves?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
The neighbours made an Ofcom complaint about me.
Your neighbours made a complaint to Ofcom?
Yeah, my next-door neighbour.
How did that work?
Well, I used to do this whole bit when I was at TFM in the northeast. Actually, this Ofcom complaint still hasn't been resolved. They're still working it out.
Still hanging over you?
Yeah, I used to go on about how I was the only normal one in the street. And I used to I didn't identify the neighbours, but I used to give them names.
Yeah.
Like the people over the road were the Volkswagens, because they had a fleet of them.
Yeah.
And then next door to them were the door slammers, for obvious reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Next door to me on the left were the Bizarros, because they did everything round the wrong way in a bizarro world. Like, she used to do the ironing outside on an extension lead.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I used to think, well, if they do the ironing outside instead of inside, what else do they do the other way round? I mean, do they sit on their food and eat with their bums? The Bizarros. And next door on the other side was the Unabomber. He had like a hooded top and sunglasses, and you never knew what he was up to. And I used to say that he had a doomsday machine that had gone critical, and, you know. Anyway, the Unabomber moves out.
Yeah.
And the new people move in, and they've got a truck and a junkyard dog. So I used to say they're the Beverly Hillbillies, the Clampets.
And these were the ones who were listening?
Yeah. I used to say they're rednecks, and I used to say they've got quite a display of used kitchen appliances on their front lawn and, you know, tyre swans. And they didn't have any of that. I made it all up.
Okay.
Right, they had a truck.
Yeah.
And a dog. But anyway, she comes knocking on the door it's one Saturday. I'm upstairs. And Julie makes the mistake. The woman comes to the door, and Julie shouts up the stairs to me, Graham, Mrs. Clampett wants to talk to you.
First mistake right
First
there.
mistake. So I go down and talk to her, and she's complaining about what I've been saying about them on the radio. And I've said, no one knows it's you. How do you know it's even you? No one knows where I live. And anyway, look, you haven't got tyre swans or used kitchen appliances on your front lawn. Oh, we've got a truck, though, and a dog. So anyway, her husband turns up, and he says, we haven't got rednecks. And I said, well, look, if it bothers you, I'm not going to mention it again. I'm not going to mention it again. Not once. And I never mentioned the whole bit, never mentioned any of the other neighbours. I just stopped. If someone's going to be funny, just stopped. And he said, we won't be taking it any further. And that was the Saturday. On the Monday, I'm dragged into the office. There's an Ofcom complaint gone in. So what kind of people do that? If you're upset and I've stopped. Well, what do you want now? Blood? I think they did. And then a few nights later, he was, in the middle of the night, was digging a hole in the garden. And I never saw that dog again.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he sold the truck.
Did he?
Yes. He sold the truck, and he killed the dog and buried it, and he sold the truck. And I'm pretty sure when he sold it to the fella, he spat on his hand before he shook his hand. I mean, it was... And anyway, that complaint's still not been resolved. It is still an ongoing thing. It was
all these years
privacy
later.
complaint or something, yeah. How would you like to be at the biggest awards there are, the biggest gig there is? It's awards season. Last night we had the BAFTAs. We also had the Grammys. We've had the Golden Globes, the Oscars still to come. But the big one, a week on Wednesday, the Brit Awards. And you could be there. It's not just an award show. It's a gig. The biggest names in the music business right now will be performing. And you could see them. I need to know about the gig you didn't get to. Whatever the reason was. Was it a public transport drama? Was it a mix-up over the tickets or the dates or whatever it is, and you've regretted it for the rest of your life? The gig you never got to. I'll make up for it by getting you to the biggest gig there is, the Brit Awards 2017 at the O2. All you got to do is fill in the form, BOBfm.co.uk. Now, Karen did that. Tell me about this gig you never got to, Karen.
I started going out with this guy,
Yeah.
and we were both big fans of Wham.
Right.
And I used to live in a flat in Pangsranger, and he come round to meet me, and we were going over to his house on my moped.
On your moped?
Yeah, it's like a moped I had then.
Yeah. So you were going round to see him on your moped?
Yeah, I was got to a roundabout, and a car pulled out in front of me, and it was a bit wet, so I sort of broke quite hard, and I fell off the moped, but he was following me in a car.
Right.
So as I went to get up and turn around and start laughing, I just got this thud, and He'd run me over.
Your boyfriend ran you over?
Yes. So an ambulance was called, and obviously I was taken down to the QE2. No sort of serious injuries, but I came out on crutches. And on the Saturday, we were supposed to be going to see Wham, and obviously I couldn't go. So
you couldn't go because you were badly hurt then.
I was on crutches. I couldn't sort of put my foot down, and I was just really sore. So my now husband, went with my sister and her boyfriend.
No.
And he thought it'd be really nice to buy me a pair of flip-flops.
Flip-flops? Well, I suppose you couldn't wear shoes if your feet were bad.
No.
Yeah. So he got to go to the gig with your sister and her boyfriend, and you got flip-flops.
And yes, and I had to stay at home with my mum.
Oh, that's terrible. All right, well, Karen, I'm going to put you into the draw to win tickets to the Brits.
Oh, thank you very much.
Good luck. The gig is a week on Wednesday. I hope I draw your name out, but it is a draw, but you are in the draw.
Oh, lovely. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Karen.
Have
Thanks
a
for
good
telling me
day.
your story. Thank you. Of the gig you never got to. What's the gig you never got to? You got a story like that or better than that that'll get you into the draw? Fill in the form now in the Brits section in the breakfast bit at bobfm.co.uk.
This is Bob.
Britain's tech-savvy iPhone generation, as they're being called, may know what a dongle is, may know how to use an iPhone and even create an app, but are clueless when it comes to changing a light bulb. According to a survey, under 35s lack basic DIY skills, so...
They can change a light bulb. Well, that's an exaggeration, isn't it? Surely
Well,
they can change a light bulb.
I know somebody who got a man in to go and change a light bulb for them.
Was there somebody... female?
No.
Oh!
No,
you
it was a bloke.
You see, I've gone on about this before. We're witnessing the end of the human race. Not only are more female babies being born than males, but the young males are not masculine. Every generation is more feminine than the next. Admit it, Chris, your dad was more masculine than you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. He could build things out of bricks and breeze blocks.
My dad built a garage out of bricks,
Yeah.
and he was a plumber. So, and I bet his dad was more masculine than him. Because his dad fought in the First World War.
Yeah, well, my granddad fought in the Second World War and worked down a mine.
Yeah, so each generation of male is becoming more and more metrosexual. And we're starting to... And, you've got people like girly man David Beckham. He tried to get lots of tattoos to look hard, but he's still a girly man. And these metrosexuals... Women love them, but they don't realise, no, sometimes you need a bloke. In a time of crisis, somebody has to change that wheel. Somebody has to change that light bulb.
Somebody has to bleed a radiator. That's really satisfying, though.
Yeah, rewire a fuse, or these days even just reset a circuit breaker. That's beyond them. Finding the fuse box, beyond them. It all changed when men started calling shirts tops. It's not a top, it's a shirt. It's not a top, it's a jersey. It's not a top, it's a sweater or a pullover. It's never a top. Tops are girls' clothes. It's never a top, ever. It's a T-shirt. It's not a top.
Well, according to this research, 8 in 10 young women expect their partner to be a decent DIYer and be able to do these things.
Yes, ladies, look what you're doing by being attracted to these metrosexuals and breeding with them. You're creating even more metrosexuals. You need to seek out the real men who will be there for you in a time of crisis. And when you go into the bathroom, they haven't stolen your hair straighteners or your goop. Every day we hear how the NHS is at breaking point, it's in crisis. Yet people continue to get stuff on the NHS that isn't about life-saving. Like, people get nicotine patches on the NHS. People get fertility treatment paid for by our tax money. And boob jobs. I mean, if your self-esteem is so low because your boobs aren't big enough, what's wrong with you having to pay for it? I've got no objection to you having a boob job, but why do I have to pay for it? Same deal with gastric bands. I don't get it. Leslie, tell me about your relative.
She was 37 stone.
Right.
And she had a gastric band fitted.
Right. On the NHS? Did we pay for it? Yeah.
And she also got permission to have the excess flesh removed.
Okay, right. And that was paid for by the NHS as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, yes. However, she lost... she went right down to 16 stone. She did so well.
Yeah.
And then they pulled the plug on the operation.
What do you mean they pulled the plug on the operation?
They said that she had to lose another 6 stone.
Yes.
Before they would operate.
Oh, to remove the excess skin?
Yes.
So they'd had the gastric band, but not the skin, right? Okay, yeah.
Yes, but then...
Well, actually, they didn't say she couldn't have it. They said they wouldn't pay for it. She could still have it if she paid for it herself.
Well, probably, yes, but she's not in a position to do that. And it makes her fall over.
The extra fat, right.
Yeah, it makes her fall over.
Well, then, she should, when you say she's not in a position to do that, if that's the most important thing in her life, she must be spending money on something. Stop spending the money on whatever it is and save up and have the operation.
Well, yeah, there is that to it. But she can't work because her joints are all preventing her from bending and moving about naturally.
So what work does she do? Is she a scaffolder or something?
No.
Can she answer the telephone?
No.
Can she talk to you on the telephone? If you ring her up, can she talk to you?
Yes, she can.
So she can use the telephone?
Right, so you're...
I'm saying some people's work...
I suppose.
Some people's work is just using the telephone.
Yes, yeah, okay. So you put me to shame.
No, what I'm saying is, a lot of people...
I just feel so sorry for her, because she works so hard.
Yeah.
And it's impossible for her to lose another 6 stone.
How's it impossible?
Well, because I think she's done enough, and she's comfortable where she is, and surely when she gets on those scales, this skin and flesh.
She has a choice. She can carry on as she can carry on as she is, with a lifestyle as she is, and she can pay to have the surgery, or she can lose the weight, and someone will pay for it. We'll pay for her to have the surgery. So she does have a choice.
Yes, she does. All right then.
All right. Cheers, Leslie.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
This is Bob.
Well, the world is facing a crisis, Chris. You brought us crisis. Well, you brought us news that the modern male may know how to do stuff with a laptop, might know how to do stuff with a phone, might understand what a dongle is, but cannot change a light bulb in a time of crisis, cannot change a wheel or a fuse or do anything manly at all because of the rise of the girly man.
That's right, yeah. They're saying things like changing light bulbs and bleeding radiators.
Bleeding radiators that are dying out. These are things that you need men for, and it's the women's fault. The women have been attracted to the girly man for years because he uses moisturiser. And they've been breeding with them and breeding more girly men. And eventually, ladies, you will have no men to help you out in a time of distress. There will be no more men. We'll all just become one homogenized generic sex. There'll be no difference between women and men. You need a difference.
You need your man to smell of man.
The smell of man. Be a man.
Smell of oil. Engine oil.
That's right. I know what Swarfiga is and how important it is.
Absolutely.
Know the difference between engine oil and gear oil. You know, these are important things. Joe's on the phone. Morning, Joe.
Good morning, Graham. I just wanted to let you know that the Heaney clan is doing its best to keep the testosterone male alive.
Yes.
My father was an Irish guard and went to war in Ireland.
Yes.
I was a firefighter for 14 years.
Firefighter, yes!
Yes, get in there. My eldest son is a roofer. My youngest son is currently studying in an apprenticeship to be a joiner and working on a building site. And all of my 3 boys are rugby players.
Joe, by breeding proper men, you might just save the human race.
I can only give it my best shot, Graham.
I appreciate you being there, Joe. Thank you very much for checking in.
Cheers, bud. Have a good day.
Ta-ra, bye.
Turn your knob to Bob.
The media and the politicians aren't helping right now. The media's in a frenzy, and the politicians are panicking. What happened in London this week was tragic beyond belief. What Khalid Masood did was appalling. And he has terrorised us. There's not a person walking over Westminster Bridge today, or a lot of other roads and bridges, that won't feel nervous and look over the shoulder when they hear a car rev up. The problem is, we're all in a heightened state. And you don't think straight when you're in that state of mind. Think about all the bad decisions you've made when you're angry. How many times have you been driving home when you've worked out exactly what you should have done or said during a difficult conversation? You couldn't think of it at the time because adrenaline was coursing through your veins and your instincts were telling you, fight or flight. We need some perspective. Here's what we know. The Westminster attacker was not a member of ISIS or any other terrorist organisation. He wasn't an immigrant. He was British, born in Kent. He carried out the attack alone. Now, Scotland Yard said Masood was not the subject of any current investigations and there was no prior intelligence about his intent to mount a terrorist attack. He was known to the police and had a range of previous convictions for assaults, including grievous bodily harm, possession of an offensive weapon, and public order offences. He had never been convicted of a terrorism offence. It looks like he was attracted to Muslim extremism. We don't know for sure, but it looks like he believed there was an invisible man in the sky. And that invisible man told him to drive a car into innocent people on Westminster Bridge. If he did hear a voice that told him to kill those people, there's a very good chance he was mentally ill. Now there are calls for the government to bring in more counter-terrorism measures, and some of them are things that make sense, like banning cars from Parliament Square, for instance. But an American-style ban on Muslims entering the country, or laptops in the cabins of planes coming from Turkey, Lebanon, Jordan, Egypt, Tunisia, and Saudi Arabia, would not have prevented an attack like this. We need to do everything we can to reduce the chances of something like this happening again. And we can label Khalid Masood as a terrorist. And in our heightened state, believe that bringing in more counter-terrorism measures is all we need to do. But maybe we should also look at the mental health issues here. What can we do to stop distressed individuals from becoming extremists? Why aren't the politicians and the media talking about that? I'm Graham Mack, and I hope you're enjoying the podcast. If you are, make sure you share it on Facebook and Twitter, and you can subscribe at iTunes. Chris Hubbard. Couple of ex-prime ministers not too happy about Brexit.
No. First we had Tony Blair.
Yeah.
Just the other day, he did his big grandstanding speech.
Yeah.
Now, John Major comes out of the woodwork.
Do you want to start with Tony Blair or John Major? I've got audio from both.
Let's start with Tony Blair.
Okay. So last week, former Prime Minister Tony Blair had this to say about Brexit.
The people voted without knowledge of the terms of Brexit. As these terms become clear, it is their right to change their mind. Our mission is to persuade them to do so.
He's saying we should basically revolt against the vote.
Yeah, he's saying stand up against it.
Now, John Major has said this.
8 months ago, a majority of voters opted to leave the European Union. I believed then, as I do now, that was an historic mistake. But it was one once asked that the British nation had every right to make. The government can't ignore that decision and must now shape a new future for our country. Some changes may be beneficial, others may not. A hard Brexit, which is where we appear to be heading, is high risk. Some will gain, others will lose. Many outcomes are going to be very different from present expectations. We'll find, to take but one example, that for all the social pressure for immigration control, economically, we will need the skills of immigrants.
Two former prime ministers are saying Brexit's a bad idea. Now, a lot of people who voted for Brexit voted for good things. They wanted good things for Britain. They didn't want bad things for Britain.
No.
They wanted bananas of any shape, and they wanted £350 million a week to go to the NHS. What's not to like? Interesting shaped bananas, money for the NHS.
Absolutely.
What's not to like? Who wouldn't vote for that?
Yeah.
Turns out the Brexit vote was all about immigration, because we are continually told that immigrants are stealing British jobs. Even though the unemployment figures that came out just after Brexit, at a time when we had the highest immigration in our nation's history, showed the unemployment figures at an 11-year low. But people have changed. People used to take facts and then use those facts to form a belief. Now people form a belief and then look for facts to back it up. And if they see facts that are to the contrary, they just ignore those facts. So we're in a different world. I'm thinking, though, why are we so down on immigrants? Why do we discriminate against immigrants? When someone uses the phrase, they're taking jobs that could be given to British people, well, that's discrimination. That's discriminating against the immigrants and giving some kind of favouritism to people who were born here. Why is that? Why does someone who leaves their own country and makes the effort to come here and learn our language and then work in jobs that we don't want to do at hours that we don't want to work and in multiple jobs, why are they the people that we don't want to give the jobs to? And why instead do we favour the people who are only here as an accident of birth, who had no control on how they got here? Shouldn't it be the other way round? Shouldn't we favour the immigrants and discriminate against the people who did nothing to get here? Why isn't that the way it is?
It's an interesting point.
You look at the nations where immigration has been incredibly successful. I lived for a long time in Australia. Fabulous country. Fabulous. Not been so great for the Aborigines. They didn't even get the vote till 1973. the indigenous people there were discriminated against, and it built a massive nation. Now, whether that's morally right or wrong is another issue, but it was the immigrants that were given the favoritism that built an amazing nation. Same thing happened in the United States. The North American Red Indians had a terrible time, and it was the immigrants that got the favoritism and the breaks and built an amazing nation, the most powerful on earth. What's happened to the indigenous population of America? Well, they were placed on reservations. Maybe we should do that here. Maybe the indigenous people of Britain should be placed on reservations. You know, the native tribes, the Geordies, the Manx, the Brummies. These different tribes could have their own reservation, and we could just let the immigrants get on and build a better nation. Now, it's not all bad news for the Native Americans. The Native Americans now run fabulously successful casinos because their reservations have tribal sovereignty. The states have limited ability to forbid gambling there. They have an Indian Gaming Regulatory Act of 1988, and it's been successful. As of 2011, there were 460 gambling operations run by 240 tribes, with a total annual revenue of $27 billion US.
Wow.
Wouldn't we as the indigenous people of Britain want that kind of money coming in? If they put us on reservations and we built these massive casino complexes, not only could we make loads of money, but imagine the jobs we'd create. And a lot of those jobs in hospitality industries, bar work and hotels and cleaners. Imagine the jobs that would create for even more immigrants.
Listen to Bob on your phone. Download the app now.
Why are we still ignoring the fact that the bloke who carried out the attack on Westminster Bridge last week wasn't a terrorist? He was a nutter. Politicians are looking for all sorts of ways to link him to terror organisations so they can bring in new laws to control us. You see, politicians are power-hungry megalomaniacs. They are hungry for power. The more they control you, the more powerful they become. Now the Home Secretary, Amber Rudd, has criticised messaging services like WhatsApp for potentially allowing terrorists to communicate undetected. She's called for encrypted networks to build backdoors into their systems so terrorist messages can be accessed during investigations. Well, Scotland Yard said that the attacker wasn't the subject of any current investigations and there was no prior intelligence about his intent to mount a terrorist attack. Yes, the attacker sent a message using one of these networks before the attack, but we don't know if that message had anything to do with the attack because it was encrypted. And he wasn't under any investigation. So if there was a back door, it wouldn't have been opened till after the attack, so couldn't have prevented it. What is she on about? Here's some facts that don't get repeated. The Westminster attacker was not a member of ISIS or any other terrorist organisation. He wasn't an immigrant. He was British. He was born in Kent and used to be called Adrian. He carried out the attack alone. None of the witnesses say that he shouted anything about Allah or any other god before or during the attack. The police have carried out a total of 15 searches at various addresses in London, Brighton, Surrey, Wales, Birmingham and Manchester. No one has been charged with anything. He was known to police and had a range of previous convictions for assaults, including grievous bodily harm, possession of offensive weapons and public order offences. But he'd never been convicted of a terrorist offence. His history of violence all happened before he was supposedly radicalised in jail. This bloke was a threat before he was a Muslim. It looks like he was attracted to Muslim extremism. But like I said earlier, he was a nutter. And nutters are attracted to extremism. They might be attracted to religious extremism, but they can also be attracted to political extremism on the far left or the far right, neo-Nazi extremism. Extremism attracts nutters. Only people with an agenda will describe this bloke as a terrorist. Politicians are top of that list. Adrian, or whatever he changed his name to, was not a terrorist. He was a nutter. He had serious mental health issues that weren't picked up or dealt with even when he was in jail. If we want to reduce the chances of this happening again, we don't need access to WhatsApp. We need to put more resources into treating people with a history of violence and mental illness. Britain is going to take back control. That's what the politicians are telling us about Brexit. Article 50, the formal process of leaving the European Union, has been triggered. 20,000 pieces of EU law will now be copied into the UK statute books. Then, thousands of those laws need to be corrected so that they can work properly. The logistical challenge is immense, and the cost will be astronomical. We're talking about everything here from medicines to banking, and the British public won't get a say on any of it. The only winners here are the politicians. These power-hungry megalomaniacs will get even more of what they crave. Power. Without the EU keeping an eye on them, British politicians will become drunk with power. We keep hearing this phrase, taking back control, as if it's us, the British people, that will get to decide for ourselves how things run from now on. The truth is, we won't get more control over anything. The politicians will still make all of the important decisions. But now, they won't have to answer to anyone. And what about the EU? They're still going to represent our biggest trading partners. Britain won't get a say on how trade deals are regulated. And given the choice, do you really think the EU will make regulations that suit us? Or their paying members? And if they don't want other member states to leave, do you think they'll make things better for a Brexited Britain? Or do you think they'll just try to ruin us as a warning to the others? What we have here now is not control. The Brexiteer politicians are selling us an illusion of control so that they can satisfy their hunger for even more power. And we've just given it to them. Scotland want independence now, and we don't know what problems a hard border with the Republic of Ireland are going to cause. What we have here is not control. It's chaos.
Bob's Breakfast.